like to acknowledge that the episodes in this series are produced on the traditional unceded lands of the Coast Salish peoples, which includes the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. We thank them for allowing us to be their guests.
Truro is a landlocked town. It's an interior town that was a distribution center of about 12,000 people, and it was. I hated it. I hated it. Always hated it.
Yeah.
So everyone knows your business, and your brain will shrink to the size of a pea. Yeah. I mean, way later on, I would go back to see my parents when we were touring, and I would go in, and in the morning I'd go for a run, because I was running then, right? Yeah. And I'd hear about it all day. So not only would I hear, oh, geez, I saw you running this morning, but I also heard you, oh, geez, so-and-so saw you running this morning, and you were saying, so not only is mouths are moving as well as eyes are watching it. And that can really, and you've got relatives, everyone knows your grandfather.
They'll tell.
It's just, I mean, you're Howard's boy. Yes, of course you are. The policeman would warn me that I was going into I was going into the pool hall. That was
Don't embarrass your father.
So I hated that. And in school, I had ADD. I have ADD, what's diagnosed as ADD inattentive. I don't know.
You know this. Yeah, they told you this.
Well, I found this out.
Yeah.
When Ezra was having the same sort of problems at school that I was.
Okay. Yeah,
so we went to a kid's shrink to find out what's going on, and we talked, and yes, we discovered that it's not HD, we're not hyperventilating, or hyperactive, right? I had to go to the principal, and I would sit down, and it actually got to the point where I would say, okay, what you're going to tell me is that he is occasionally disruptive, that he will not pay attention if he's not interested.
Oh, yeah.
And
gets
that
bored.
He will not, refuses to switch tasks if he is. Right. And stuff. And I said, do you have anything to add to that you say? And it's, well, no, not really. And I said, well, what should I do? Should I beat him? Should we what? What do you do?
He's too big to beat.
Well, he will be. This is in grade 5, grade 4. This was all going on. So anyway, I was tested for deafness multiple times when I was
when you were a kid?
In grade 1, first going in. They thought I must be deaf because I wasn't. I just didn't listen because I wasn't interested. And that made, and so then once but that wasn't, you don't have a learning issue. You are lazy. That's what you are. So now we've moved into the moral universe. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Right. He's just lazy.
Yeah, and that's a failing. That's a failing. You're not working.
Now we're into the Presbyterian era, right? Where the doctrine of the elect, right? You are either
Is that what you guys were? Were you Presbyterian?
That embedded in it, and they never talk about this stuff. It's never. But embedded at the bottom of it is that you're either going to heaven or you're going to hell. And if you behave well, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to heaven.
Yeah.
But if you behave badly, it means you're going to hell.
Yeah.
So when somebody says, oh, geez, he's bad kid, that was existential. It wasn't like it was like he needs to be helped like that.
Yeah.
So I was all through lazy, I was way down in the class, would never have gotten in university, ever in 100 years.
Yeah.
Now. and in school, and only at the last moment they started testing in grade 11, and there was a flurry because I was testing, it was quite a difference between what I was testing in terms of aptitude and stuff, and what was showing up, and this kind of made me wonder. Well, but they just put it down to being recalcitrant, that you were just,
stubborn,
lazy
and stubborn.
Lazy and stubborn.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, going to Mount Allison, I always hung around with the fine arts crowds. I was always fascinated by the kids who were the arty kids, because there weren't any arty kids in Truro. They were all athletes, and they had and teams, and I grew to loathe teams. Because teams are instruments of inclusion. They're also an instrument of exclusion, right? The team, they by rejecting and I was at the very end of the lineup in baseball, and you know how awful baseball is. You're on the spot, Baseball is so cruel, right? It's a mentally devastating because all eyes are on you for like 6 seconds.
Or more. If you're pitching.
Like you're pitching. Huh? So I mean, I hated it. My mother, so I wanted to be arty.
It was you and your brother, right? You had.
Yeah, but my brother was 6 years younger than me.
Right.
So by the time when I left town, the brother and 2 sisters, they were 9, 10, 6. I was pretty much an only child
for a long time.
To quite a degree. And the other, so I wanted to be arty, and I wanted to be. I had gone and I'd been in a play, the Colchester Players, called "Teach Me How to Cry" by Patricia Joudry, Canadian playwright, of quite well liked at the time. And I did that, and I liked that. And so when
where was that? Where was it? Was it in Truro?
In Truro.
Right, okay.
This little theater.
Community theater.
Yeah, little community theater.
What did you play? What part did you play?
I played the male lead. I was the boy.
Cool.
And
you went out and got this? You went
the juvenile. Yes, I auditioned for it, and I got the part, because only one other guy.
Had you done stuff in school before?
No.
Well, where did this idea come from? How did you? Why did you? You said you knew that you wanted to be arty, and I think we came along around the same time. There was a lot of stuff going on in the mid '60s. The folk music, the whole bit. There was a different kind of viewpoint on being an artist. How did you take anything like that in high school? They have like
no
creative writing or art?
No, nothing like that.
Where did the music start? You started playing music, right?
My dad was a kind of he's quite musical. He sang in the choir, sang quartets, and he played a bunch of instruments badly, very badly actually. He could kind of get by if people were doing a sing-song and he was playing piano. But they wanted me to go to music lessons, and God bless them, they hung on, because I refused, of course, to practice.
Yeah, right, of course. Yeah.
I refused to practice, and as a result, the end result of that was that the teacher would show me how the thing went, and I'd learn it by ear, and from then on, I wouldn't be reading. So I never did learn to read.
Yeah, I was
playing grade 8 level, but I couldn't read. Yeah. They didn't know I couldn't read.
Yeah.
And I got this piano teacher who was Mr. Marino, and again, something from the outside, out of Truro. He was a DP. He was
a displaced person.
Yes, who was from Latvia, and he'd been in a concentration camp, a German, and a Stalinist.
Right.
He came here, and he was the organist, choir director. Here, I have on Spotify a piece that he wrote that's actually still played a lot. He was a composer of quite some note.
That's great.
He studied with Rimsky-Korsakov. And he was a concert accompanist, but he was very traditional. I mean, very.
Yeah.
And he could.
Yeah.
Yeah, but none of that for me, Stevie. I never learned scales
I
either.
could
I
play
never learned anything. I mean, except
Yeah.
I had a certain competitive. I would learn the piece if I liked it,
Yeah.
and then if when the Nova Scotia Provincial Music Festival
Right.
came on, I would actually learn the thing, by ear, right, and and then you use the notes as a kind of to corroborate whether it's going up or down, right? And I would, I'd play it, I'd practice it, just because I want, and I'd win every time. I'd win like the best performance of the festival. I would win. I always have got trophies.
So so that was started
High school.
High school.
Yeah, early
And how
high
many
school,
times did you do that? Did you
Oh, I won 4 or 5 years.
That's great.
I was
That's
doing
great.
very well. I think
Yeah.
there was one where the tune sucked, so I didn't.
So
want to play.
scholarship and stuff must have been included with that kind of thing, right? Did you have any angles where you could have gotten a scholarship? No, they didn't have that, right?
No. No. Another one was that mother, who was she was a sort of a mystical Christian. Dad was a sort of Presbyterian,
Yeah.
And but mother was like she had been a pharmacologist, right? And stuff. And she would say things like, "Do you know that the sea, if you put it under the microscope, it's more organism than water. So it's not really too much to say that the sea is a living thing." And she would just come up, like always coming up with that sort of little
Whoa,
thing.
never thought about that, Mom.
Yeah, and if you take it out in a small glass and leave it, and it'll just let it sit there for a long time, it'll smell like a dead body.
Yeah, you'll notice it. It is a living thing. It used to be.
Yeah. And but she gave me a book. I don't know why or when. I have no idea why. By Paramahansa Yogananda, called Autobiography of a Yogi.
Yeah, right.
And he was one of the very early guys who came in, brought yoga to the New World. And it had to do with these non-eating saint, a saint who could be two places at once. These people who lived like 150 years, these people, and he was just in this, about the people and places and things he went, and it was this whole other realm.
Yeah, right.
So of course, I got into then the Lincolns. The Lincolns happened when I was at university. I went to university, and I was in plays. Of course,
You went to Saint Yvette?
No, Mount Allison.
Mount Allison.
You couldn't get me to learn my lines. I just wouldn't bear down, right?
Yeah,
And so that dream, that's a dream that was familiar to me, of drawing. Yeah. I dried a lot. I was quite frustrated to do that. Oh dear. And I was terrible to students. Oh, Jesus.
Now, I've actually been in plays that you were acting in, and you're not, you're pretty good. You were good.
I didn't, but I wouldn't.
Mind you, a lot of the time I was behind a screen, so I didn't actually see you.
Well,
you sounded good.
I know, I got parts, I got leads and stuff. Sort of. But I did, I got that. And so when I had two things I wanted to do when I left Mount Allison. I wanted to get as far from Nova Scotia as I could get without leaving the country.
Right.
And I wanted to do some theater. So I applied. The only two places you could go was National Theater School. And I'd never get into that because I didn't have the numbers.
And they only had 12 kids or something.
Oh, yeah. Or UBC, right? And that's how I ended up there. And I met everyone.
And that was to go for a master's, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Because I did get a degree. I got a BA. I mean, my God.
Like a BA in theater.
I got in English the first time.
Uh-huh.
And but Mars, we were looking at 50s, 55.
Right.
English was better. It was.
I failed multiple courses.
Oh,
I had to take summer school.
I did too.
I did too.
Yeah. I failed biology.
Yeah.
I failed geology. I failed French.
Yeah.
I no, it was just not a very. But I was playing by then, and we had a
Yeah.
we had a band,
And you were playing trumpet.
trumpet, and
Yeah.
with the band that we had at Mount Allison. We were always putting together bands.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then I went back home one summer, and the Lincolns had this. There was Frank McKay had bought this organ, and he was playing and singing, and it didn't really work. One, because he was not a piano player, he was just playing notes and holding them.
Yeah.
But also because he was behind the thing, and it took away from the lead singer and the whole thing. It was kind of, and so in return for I bought his organ.
Okay. Stop it playing.
So
That's a good way to do it. Yeah.
I started playing for the Lincoln.
Yeah.
And then I graduated to the band, bought a Hammond organ, and I played that.
There you go. Yeah. Great.
Now, while I was playing that, I was going to Mount A, and so from there on, I would get on the train to Truro from Sackville on Friday after around supper time, get to Truro, go to the gig at the Legion Hall, do another gig on Saturday someplace, do another. In other words, a little tiny gig, a jazz. Me and Lane would do something, and it was like on Sundays sometimes, and then I'd go back either Sunday or Monday.
Yeah.
So I was spending very little time actually at university during that period.
Yeah.
And which was suited me.
Yeah.
It was fine, and the Lincolns though it was. Just the most marvelous fucking thing to happen to me. I mean, it was the first time I was sort of accepted by the coolest guys anywhere. This was, and we were making money, man.
Sure.
We would make, at $1 a head, we draw 800 or 900 people to the Legion Hall.
Mm-hmm.
And we got 60%
Divvy
of
that
the
up.
gig.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we'd have a second gig that wouldn't be quite, but we would make like $90 a week in 1966.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So now you're talking 400 sort of thing a week while going to university.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, it was just excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
But it was in Truro.
Yeah, right.
Now this is a real side thing, and we had a reunion of the Lincolns just the summer before COVID, and we got together again.
I think I knew that.
And there were Frank had died, Lee had died, the baritone sax player, and Brian had died, and but there was Lane and Don and Roddy and me and a couple of people who had replaced them along the way. So we were the Lincolns, and we played what we had played, and it was just fucking. We could do it again.
Yeah.
It was what we could play. Hold on, I'm coming. Just as well as we could ever play. 99 and a half.
Yeah.
Sam and
So
Dave.
you guys were a cover band.
We could. Jesus, actually, for sure.
Yeah.
And but the thing about the Lincolns, and they that I did the introduction for, and Frank died, the lead singer, but I gave the introduction. He gave the extra because he died after the reunion, and I gave I did the whole introduction, and I went back and barely I went around Truro, and fucking hell. Talk about a town that had really progressed, because there was no east side, west side, It seemed to be integrated. What was the N-word island, called the island, which was originally N-word island, was now totally integrated and was no longer these shacks that didn't get sewage, didn't get services.
No services or amenities.
A drummer, Wilfred Connors, he was in this house, and he had this house. He had kids and stuff. They had coal clinkers piled up around the house as insulation right up to the eave.
Right.
You go into the front door, and it was all cardboard with this narrow thing, and the cardboard on dirt going
Oh,
in.
God, yeah.
And there was, I mean, these is the sort of like and there was the Arab community. There was like Syrians and Lebanese. It was really pockets, and I realized that the Lincolns basically was the only place where everyone was under one roof.
Right.
All these different groups.
All the kids could come in.
And especially the black kids, and they were coming, and because for these white kids playing black music.
That was a big deal. That was a really big deal. People don't talk about that much, really.
Oh, no.
You know?
No. Oh, they did.
They talk about Elvis,
yes.
you know, but I remember in Durham there were only, there was one black station or one station that played, you know,
blood music,
black music, and pre-Motown black music, you know. And I'd listen to that every night.
Yeah.
Everything else was country music.
Yes, exactly.
Or Guy Lombardo or something.
Yes, exactly.
You know, not to put down a famous Canadian, but you know, it was not my. It was my mom's music, my dad's music. You know, when they really wanted to chill, they listened to something like that. You know.
Yeah, well, they listened to big band music. That's their
yeah, big band music. Soothing big band music.
For us, all the music they listened to was soothing. You know, standing on the corner, watching all the girls go.
I remember that very well.
You know what I mean?
A white sport coat and a pink carnation.
The Ames brothers. Right?
The Ink Spots.
The Ink Spots. In a song,
Andrews Sisters, people like that. Post-war, you know, popular.
Now Lane was older. He was 6 years older, and he was sax player, and he was kind of like an older brother to me. He got me into jazz.
Right.
He was interested in jazz. And Lane was earlier than that. He was like the early days of rock and roll, right? Which is one step beyond like rockabilly. And they had a lead singer who was black named Screamin' Jay Paris.
Great.
And that's where
Screamin' Jay Paris.
Screamin' Jay Paris.
That's great.
And he
is he around? Do you know?
Jay Paris, I don't know.
Well, we'll look that up.
But anyway, Paris, and he was like a Little Richard.
Figure. Yeah.
And he was black, and I used him as my model for Screamin' John, right? In rock and roll. Yeah. But at the time, I couldn't use a black actor for it because if I was right that way, it would make the whole show about being black. The whole show, because of the way that was when it was breaking.
That's his story.
And when there were subsequent productions of rock and roll, they would use a black guy. And I said, Jesus, yes, but have him look like Little Richard, like like just an outrageous kind of guy. You know? And you can imagine he was a friend with Buddy Holly, and he would have him down to his place in Texas. What Buddy's parents must have thought with this, Little Richard there. It would have worked really well, but they always wanted to get handsome, kind of black guys who, and that was really not what it was. Right? So, anyway, but that whole thing, and so I really got the Lincolns. I really ended up feeling really good about them, about the role in that was where people got together.
Well, also you were really in showbiz then. Yes. At that point, you know, I mean, you were seeing the lights and the tickets coming in and the venues, and you get this really kind of, and it's your thing. Yeah. It's not, like you guys are doing it all. Yeah. So that's really good education.
Oh Jesus.
For somebody who wants to be in that world.
Well, it all pointed
that's the way to go.
It all pointed to I now know why when I thought of writing plays, or I know why they'd be musicals, but first thing came that they were more or less presentational, right? Yeah. That there was no fourth wall, because it wasn't what I was going directly to somebody and getting their reaction.
And the thing is, and I learned this actually, kind of when I was in 18 Wheels, was because I had never done any musicals, that elastic between the actor and the audience is phenomenal when you're singing.
It is amazing.
It's just like, it's not just elastic, it's like, a tidal force moving you through to each other.
You could
and
feel this energy field moving, and you can feel when you're losing it, when it's withdrawn.
Oh yeah.
Right?
You can. It's like a living sculpture around
and
you.
You very quickly learn, right? You very quickly learn about what to do when you're the first thing you would think of doing if you think you're losing them is to speak louder and faster, right?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Am I keeping you up? When in fact you should do exactly the opposite, right?
Yeah.
You should speak slower and more softly.
Yeah.
So the audience trains you.
Yeah.
It's like doing on camera stuff for television, which I had to do, and it's being just thoroughly embarrassed for a long, because you can't duplicate doing an on camera with going on take online. The thing, you can't use a dummy camera and learn how to. Won't teach you. Fuck off.
No.
No. It's and you have to go through looking at yourself and going, oh my God.
Oh, it was shocking. And the other thing was there were two things to that. It was the first time I heard myself on a tape recorder. This was in grade 6.
Oh, that's no
right?
fun. Yeah.
And they taped us to do something, and the teacher played it back on these speakers. These quote non-speakers, really, but these speakers, and you hear your voice, and you sound so, you sound horrible. It's not you; it's a different person, but it actually is you.
I really got into that with Mr. Good Evening, because when he was, he had never heard his voice. You never would. Under what circumstances would you hear your own voice?
Yeah, really.
And so you only one hears that voice you hear in your chest, in your back.
Right.
It's not what's coming out. No.
And the same thing, and I remember very clearly when the first. When we saw the first dailies of any movies that I was in, and you think, oh God, that's not what I thought I was doing. And then I realized, for an actor, if you're starting to act in movies and TV, and if you haven't seen yourself act, you don't have a clue what you're doing. You can be truthful, and you have no idea what it looks like when you're being truthful, and how big that is.
That's the difference between people who have been to school and have learned to act in school and then got an agent right now, and people who have done a bunch of theater.
Right.
The director, they are completely beholden to the director to find out how they're coming across.
Yeah. And they have to listen. And they have to listen. When the guy says, "Oh, you're shaking."
Yeah.
Is it shaking?
A stage actor knows what certain things, and the reaction is to certain things that the stage actor does. Yeah. And then the main thing is to learn how to act on the right level. Yeah. So you'll find, right? And on camera, you watch yourself, and you'll have to go through watching yourself stiff. The smile, that rictus of a smile that you get when you're
not really happy at all.
And you get
that was great, Fred.
And the old plexiglass over the eyeballs, the deer in the headlights. Look, when you're not really looking at into the camera, you're looking
right here. Look right here, John.
And you're thinking about how you look on the camera. So your eyes are really pointing in the other
direction. He's walking away, John. Bye, John.
Oh God! And you go through that, but that is what really attracted me to it. It's boy, oh boy. Then
so you went to UBC. You did the Lincolns. You decided you were going to keep going. Yeah. Right. You applied to do a master's. What were you thinking? Were you thinking what I thought, which was, okay, if this all goes to hell, I can teach?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's what I was saying.
Because of course I'm getting this from my father. Well, you're going to have to do something for your bread and butter.
Yeah, yeah. It's always nice to have something to fall back on.
Fall back on.
Yeah.
Oh, and you know, the world has only so much room for entertainers.
That's wonderful. That's really good.
I don't know, Dad.
Thank you, Dad.
And
you should leave then. You should get out of the room, Dad. Just take off.
Yeah. And
you're in my space, you dork.
But you know, shit. You know, it was. And
okay,
and
so
then UBC, and then I met people.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I met people,
and you're doing
that was
theater.
I could do theater, and I wasn't no better a student in the theater. My orals were a joke.
Oh.
You know, it was Brockington who really got me through because Soul hated me. He disliked me.
Who was on your committee? Brockington Soul.
Brockington Soul.
When you had to do it.
Somebody else. Oh, and I had to go in, and Soul. By then, he didn't like me one bit because he knew I didn't like him. That's Soul. Soul was really
He saved my ass, actually.
He did.
Yeah, I'll tell you. A long story, but keep going. Yeah.
Well, many-sided man, obviously.
Yeah.
But he, I don't know. I think he was locking antlers with me a little bit, kind of thing. Because I always do seminars with them, with people, and but he wasn't. Anyway, I didn't really care about that. It was only because of Sally that I got an MA because to finish.
When did you guys?
started.
When the two of you guys get together?
We got together the year that I came to UBC.
Was she from here? Or was she?
No,
from back?
she was from. Her family was from New Brunswick, from Rothsay. It was a kind of moneyed family, and her father was a captain with the Navy.
Right.
And he had actually seen action in Korea.
Sure. Yeah.
And he was stationed in Virginia Beach, so she was in fine arts.
Mm-hmm.
And we met through the fine arts crowd and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think I got married because quitting the Lincolns and getting and going to a place that I didn't know at all. I mean,
and you're 22.
I was 22, and things. I think it was just fear. I got married to be with somebody.
Yeah. I understand that.
And
for sure.
Her father was what a piece of work. Oh man, he was on Zosky quite a bit because he was a big authority. This captain with the Navy who, when he didn't like the decks, thought the decks weren't being swabbed properly, he had them cut the mops handles in half.
Oh, ooh.
And if they weren't then,
Yeah.
He cut them in half.
Oh, yeah, you know.
That's the kind of guy he was.
Yeah.
When he
Find himself in a lifeboat one day, floating in the middle of the Pacific.
Now, when he didn't do this with me, but when his sister, Sally's sister, was kind of going with a guy he was suspicious of, he put detectives on him, you know.
Right.
I mean, he was really a job, but he was big on rhododendrons and azaleas. He was an authority on rhododendrons, and became kind of with Peter Zosky, became a kind of gray eminence. Speaking from Nova Scotia with it, the captain kind of thing, the jolly old captain, which he was by no means.
Yeah. But he could play the part.
He was.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
boom, you come out here.
I got here, and once I got here, and I was in the theater, and I just started auditioning for anything I do, just to do it, because I faked my resume. I claimed to be in pretty much every play I'd ever heard of, really. I was a complete fraud.
Yeah.
So I
Eli Kazan, 4 different credits.
I played some wonderful parts.
I saw you in many of them, but you were great.
Oh God, yes, Jesus. I was a woman who tried to direct 6 characters in search of an author, and the first 4 4 rehearsals, and then she had a nervous breakdown, and rehearsals were canceled, and I was in 6 councils. I was in that play.
You have a dead man's birth certificate. John Gray is not really your name.
And so I just additionally got into shows whenever, I got used to what a real stage was like, and what a real lights and all that stuff. You know, it was, and later on, I mean, what's interesting was that when I left with my MA in Frederick Wood Theatre, right? That was the last theater that was actually built to be a theater that I actually kind of was in until Billy Bishop.
Right.
From then on, it was converted churches, basements, funeral parlors,
community halls,
railway stations. That was the.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. Or outdoors.
Or outdoors. Anything. It was, but no, it was.
I think the first other theater I didn't perform at all until I came up here, and I think the first theater that I played in after UBC that was a real theater was maybe the one in Victoria, the Bastion.
The Bastion,
maybe?
yes.
Yeah, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I never got that high.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
No.
Well, Tamanou, we did a couple of shows there.
Sure.
We toured, and so when we toured, we would try to get a
Yeah.
gig there. You know, we did a couple of shows.
We never. Never saw one, but it was it was kind of that. That was a wonderful thing because, like, I was taking directing. I was going to get my master's in directing, mostly because I wanted to be the most important person in the room.
Yeah, sure. And have some
I like
control.
the idea of the I love the idea of the visionary.
Yeah.
I was into I was a member of the Film Society, so I loved the Bergmans and the Fellinis.
Antonioni, all those guys.
That was auteur.
Yeah.
And
Kurosawa,
so I wanted to do that. Now, so through Strassman, Klaus Strassman, I learned how to do a ground plan. Surprised how many freaking directors don't do their own ground plan. Because that's what defines your entity.
Let's explain that for the...
A ground plan is the sections of the stage, and the sections of the stage have varying strengths. And if you're standing, and varying qualities. Downstage center, well, on the one hand, yes, that's very important, but you are now dividing the stage in two. Right?
Yeah.
So you better think about that.
Yeah.
Entrances, long entrances and exits. That's how the character establishes themselves. So you learn to do that. I never got to the point. I thought I kind of had a sort of general thematic vision of the play, of what the play was about, and I tried to stretch it. I tried to go outside with that. But for some reason, this was what saved me as a director, because I wasn't a good director. Not like Larry. Larry just was,
we'll get into that. We'll get into
that.
Larry.
Way beyond.
But
what I did was I knew enough to tell somebody, an actor, when he was doing something I liked, and not when he was doing something I didn't, that I felt was. I would, so that when you got them to do something like they do more of it. They would do more of it, and they might even develop that. So they would kind of do themselves in a way. They would, and they would really do the work themselves, and I would just kind of encourage them along and move them about and that sort of thing. And I got away with that, but no, I knew that as far as going and directing other people's plays,
Yeah.
I was going to be too bored.
The other thing that I think you had, and I think this is
Yeah.
we're in the era when you and I first met,
Yeah, sure.
and we're
Yeah.
working at UBC, and I think the music really made a lot of
Yeah,
difference
absolutely.
for you, because you had a really good way of. And I tell this to people all the time. You had a really good way of setting the mood of a piece, and making sure that the kind of tone of scenes from one to another, kind of flow of the atmosphere really moved around very nicely, and I think that was for sure in the musicals, but also in things like Dracula,
Yes.
you know, and
Yes.
stuff like that, in the Nijinsky, Bull Durham, you know,
Yes.
which is kind of an underrated show, really, because it was such a rough little hippie show, you know, but
my God, funny.
cool show, you know.
Funny.
Yeah,
Oh
funny
my
show, very funny show.
But I have. Well, it's the ear. I got it. Which Larry could be visual too.
Yeah.
But not me. I really depended on my lighting designer. I didn't have strong visual ideas, and I knew it.
Yeah.
But you know, a good lighting designer loves that.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, you
Blank
know,
slate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, so do, and never did was I ever disappointed, but you know, no. So it was. I got to a point where I was going to direct my own. I was going to.
Yeah.
Much.
Yeah, for sure.
And that was past Mariah.
And also do new things. I think when you think about the first introduction that I had, and probably around the same time that we had, to where we were doing a brand new play. We weren't doing something that was written 200-300 years before, you know, some some scrap of Shakespeare or Moliere or something. You know, we're doing something that was written like right now. Is actually being written right now.
Exactly.
You know, that was really neat.
And that was a brand new thing, and also that was. And
there weren't a lot of rules. The rules weren't nearly as codified then. Or, you know, you came out of school. You came out of school inheriting the structure of everything that had been before.
Exactly.
But now that was not necessarily applicable. You know.
Well, it was also it was also.
And there wasn't any money. You know, the production thing was changing too. You know, it was very fertile. Kind of chaotic.
And all these models, like in the Living Theater and the group theater. And all the
Schechner and all that.
Schechner and Gutowski. It was pretty, you know, and even people like the Brit guy who just died, Peter Brook. He was doing very scaled down, minimalistic, which me being a little visually, yes, minimalism, please tear it down. And the but also place you learn quickly. If you want to be an actor in Canada, you learn quickly. You have to do a variety of British accents. Otherwise, you will not get parts. That was how it was. You could do, unless you were playing, you had to do a London accent, a North Country accent. You had to do British accents. And it wasn't until I went to Eric had gone ahead of me to Toronto, and he was with Theatre Pass Mariah.
Eric Peterson.
And I remember going the first time because I was doing Bull Durham with David Peterson and Robert Browning in Toronto. And I went out to where they were doing the farm, 1837, the Farmers' Revolt in Listowel, Ontario. And it was going on in a sales barn, which is where cows are bought and sold at auction. So there was a stage, right? And there was benches, and stuff, and it was manure, right? And in the winter, they'd go in snowmobile suits to go to the show, right? and it was packed, and
Yeah.
it was the first time I'd ever heard a Canadian accent on stage. I actually saw something on stage that I'd actually heard in life.
Yeah.
And it
For sure.
never happened before.
Yeah.
I'd never read a Canadian book. I'd never seen a Canadian play. I'd never. I mean, it was. It's very hard now to explain to somebody just what one of your titles, Tamada Fangen, it was a turnover. I just, whoa.
Yeah.
And so now I started doing, that was 18 Wheels. I thought, okay, a musical for truck drivers that could go on in a beer parlor that was for truck drivers.
Yeah.
So you have not
The kind of place a band would play.
and it has 3 sets.
Yeah.
Not 3 acts,
Yeah.
but 3 sets.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was the Lincolns plus, it was all a bunch of stuff that came together.
Yeah.
And things.
And that was nice exploration too of a genre of music that people kind of overlook as sort of a subgenre. All that trucking music, Red Sovine and Tom T. Hall.
6 days on the road. 6 days on the road, and I'm going to make it home tonight.
That was a lot of fun. That was a whole lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And I loved the times in the show when you'd have, there's a little pause in the show. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but you come up and you talk to the audience for a couple of seconds.
Yes, of course.
You know, and you have these really stupid ass jokes, you know.
Yeah. They're deliberately.
I went ice fishing last week, caught 205 pounds of ice, you know, stuff like that. You know, just garbage, you know. But the audience loved that stuff. It was really, really good, you know.
Well, you could do it because on stage the other guy didn't get it at all.
Yeah, right. You could always do it.
He was brain dead from having been taking uppers, and he's been up for 4 days. And also and that was part of rock and roll. How in a culture that is so dominated by is so colonized, as Canada was, and it looked to me like we were simply just changing mother countries, going from, at the time, from Britain to the States.
Well, it was like one of those particles, those subatomic particles that vibrate between 2 states. You know, it's quantum Canada. You know,
It was that, and how these people with a shitty job. I mean, their backs go. They had terrible problems with bowel problems. They didn't eat good food. They had stuff. They're up too late, and they're lonely, and it was dangerous. You get a right front blowout, and that's the end of you. You're gone. It's as Milton Nichols said, you know, man, if we hit something, they could spread us on a sandwich. We don't know. Spread us on a sandwich.
Oh boy, can't unsee that now.
and how they managed to create a culture for themselves.
Yeah, right.
And that was really interesting. And how a totally colonized town created some sort of a culture around R&B music. You know, in a town that was, oh my God, well, very, very. You go. I had this. There was this joke, you know, but well, it was Truman McIntosh that was the actual kind of guy. You go into Truman McIntosh clothes, you're going to look like Perry Como.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what you buy, you're going to look like Perry Como when you get out of there.
You clothe everybody.
Oh, Jesus, get a black leather jacket. You'll still look like Perry Como somehow.
Right.
You know, it was like very, so there was no. It was suddenly this black aspect to life and stuff. Blacks couldn't work in town. There were no black clerks.
This was in
Truro.
Yeah.
Barbers didn't cut their hair.
Wow.
Right? They worked for the CNR. because Truro was a big railway station. It was the main depot.
Were there black businesses like there were down home?
No black.
There was no like a black undertaker,
No
a black
business.
cab
They
company.
They either worked for a warehouse on the edge of town. There was a lot of work there, or they were worked for the CNR.
Wow.
And on the Montreal run, back and forth. And there was, I found out stuff about the black community, and that members of the black community had about where the people came from and how they got their names, because and stuff. And by God, it's a really rich business.
Yeah, big history, big history, big
and
ignored
we were
history.
Friends with a guy named Murray Dorrington, and Murray had been in the war and stuff. And we had after because the bootlegging, Truro was a dry town. Over the counter booze wasn't served.
Right.
And if you wanted to, if to get your beer or to get your bottle, all right, you went to the liquor store.
Yeah.
You picked your bottle from a list. You paid for it. A guy went, it's true in Ontario too, got your bottle.
Yeah.
This was the first you saw of your bottle.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Your bottle was then put in a plastic bag.
Right.
And the plastic bag was sealed.
Okay.
If you were in the car,
Yeah.
and that seal was broken,
Okay.
not the bottle,
Bang. Yeah.
but the seal,
Yeah.
if you were not on a route
Yeah.
directly between
Your place and home.
or your place and home,
Yeah.
that was illegal possession.
Wow. Wow.
Case of beer, the seal went across the
box,
the box so
Yeah.
that you couldn't. It was like,
Wow.
it was right. Naturally, the bootlegging was a cottage industry, all bloody
Yeah.
well over.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a guy named Walker Douglas, who, my Lord, he had been a bootlegger for a long time, and he had been really rich for a while. But it was down, but all he had left was he had this old Cadillac, and he had a dog with gold teeth. And so after the gig, we would go down. We'd all go to the island, right? And it was one of 2 or 3 guys, because it was Wilfred Connors, who had the piled up stuff in this appalling house that was a fire trap.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch
Surrounded
of
by
kids.
coal.
Great. There was no door to the kitchen at the back, and there was a coal furnace, and it was, you could see cracks in it and stuff, and it was lined with cardboard, and somebody had drawn a door on the back piece of cardboard. There was no door, Steve. All right, and occasionally you'd be back there, and you'd be sitting there in these kind of like. The universal couch was the universal couch. It's just saggy and it's and you'd see somebody get up and go, and they'd be standing at the trunk, kind of clawing at the knob in the trunk, trying to. Oh my God! Oh dear God! It was a whole life in Truro. Being around that repression, that kind of.
My high school is 2,000 students. Bigger than the university I went to.
Yes.
Right. So my graduating class in high school was 500 students, and I never knew everybody. I never knew everybody's name.
Well, in Truro, it was a smaller school for sure. But I can remember in high school there was 10 A, B, C, D, and E. And in grade 12, it was grade 12 A and B. So everyone had quit school and gone on to a trade. Or so there were very few people actually graduated comparatively from it. And the best students were all mostly would be girls. Yeah. Right? And they became teachers.
Yeah. We were a university town, so we had a big premium from, I guess, the city and maybe through the teachers themselves toward excellence. And it was at that time when it was all about going to the moon. You know, it was the '60s, and you know, so the supposition was that you were going to go to university.
My mother would say that, but I didn't believe her.
Yeah.
Because my teacher, my grade 7 teacher, was encouraging me to do my best to get my grade 8, because then I could join the army and take a trade.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, well, I'd be quite a well.
They're crazy people in every school.
No, a menace to any building site. But yeah, I was. That was my. You're going to fail, John. You're going to fail, and I'm going to be sorry that you failed. This was the.
But the reality is you're going to fail.
You're going to fail. And
I'm so glad I didn't. I'm so glad I came up here. I'm so glad I came to UBC. I really am. I'm surprised at how much that makes me happy that I did that.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm very happy that I got into theater, which was completely unplanned.
Yeah.
You know, totally never even thought of, right? That.
I know.
You know, you just you have no idea how some of these decisions will work out. You know.
No, it was that period when you were absolutely just following your nose. Yeah. You were no more planning. You were planning to hear. Oh gosh.
And a lot of times planning about things I didn't want to do. Reacting to things I'm not going to do that. I'm not. That's one thing I'm not going to do.
Now you've moved into the Canadian realm. Milton Acorn brought this up, that the Canadian vehicle is the rowboat, because we go forward facing back. All right.
Okay.
We don't know where we're going, but we know where we don't want to go. All right. So you steer according to where you don't want to go.